All right, we are at the top of the hour, so let's begin. Welcome once again, everyone, to the ACT training webinar series. For those of you who are new to this series, this is something we've been doing at the end of every month, last Wednesday of the month. And the goal here is to just show you something in ACT that you may not be using, maybe different features that you may not be using or might be a little bit confused about, just to give you more confidence when you're using ACT, maybe to show you some features that you've never used before so that you can get more out of ACT. And so this will be our fifth, I believe, session. And today we're kind of doing a catch-all. We're going to do just different tips and tricks that you might not know about that might help you. None of these is enough to warrant an entire webinar series, an entire session. So we've kind of just bundled 9 or 10 of them together here for you. Now, if you have questions, we definitely encourage questions during this series. Make note of the Q&A panel inside Zoom and go ahead and ask your questions there. We'll be joined by Ed and Dan over in the UK. So all of Group B is represented today. And also this is going to be recorded. So don't worry about that. If I go too fast, you can always view the video later and see anything that you might have missed. Now, I know a lot of you like to follow along with me as I'm doing these demonstrations, and that's great. Follow along with me if you have ACT open on your computer. And but if you fall behind, don't worry. It's being recorded, so you can always come back and see it again. Also, I should mention at the end of this, there will be a survey sent to you. This just helps us get feedback on how well this series is going, and also if there are any ideas, any things that you'd like to see in a webinar like this, we can make it happen. As a matter of fact, one of the tips that we're going to show today came from the survey itself. So we're going to do a section on creating an activity series template, and that came from one of your responses in our surveys. So let's begin. A little bit about our agenda today. We're going to talk about database sharing, one of a neat little technical tip that you need to do to basically solidify your database sharing. We're going to look at setting access levels automatically, configuring company preferences, which means automatically creating new companies. Look at doing replacements on fields database wide, even creating your own menu shortcut for maybe an advanced query search that you've saved before, and a few more things that you can see in this list. A little bit about me. My name is Brent Milner. I've been with ACT for 17 years now. I just had my anniversary in November. My job here at the company is to create training videos and to teach our new hired employees, our customers, our partners, anybody who needs to know about ACT or wants to know about ACT. I'm probably going to be involved in that. I live in Arizona, up in the 7,000-foot elevation up in the mountains and the snow. So not all Arizona is desert. We have one little piece up here that is in a forest. So let's start today by talking about database sharing. Now, this is for Windows users only. This is a technical tip which really just applies to users who are upgrading ACT. Users who are on the network with a shared database will be affected sometimes by not having access to the API service. And so what this little trick does is it overrides each user's individual settings by giving them access to the API via the network. So I want to show you how to do this. It's really easy to do. From ACT, what you're going to do is go to your Tools menu. And from here, you'll click Preferences to open your Preferences window. And this will be in the Admin tab. So if you click the Admin tab, you'll see a little checkbox at the bottom that says Use Shared Database Networking for API Access. You're going to want to check this box if you're sharing your database. Once you do that, you'll find that other users at your company now have access to the API. And that just means that they'll be able to see things like your welcome screen, the ACT Insight, interactive dashboards, opportunities pipeline view, anything that calls upon the web API, they'll have better access to see that. Next tip I want to show you talks about automatic access level for new records. So if you need to limit employee access to some of your records, like your contact records, companies, groups, or opportunities, this is a way where you can set it up by default so that whenever your users create new records, that access level is automatically implemented. Now, this has to be set up by the individual user from within their own preferences area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as a different user in my ACT database. And I'm going to log in as, let's see, who should I log in? Let's do Randy. He's one of my sales representatives. When I log in as Randy, he'll be able to set up how he wants new records that he creates to be treated with access level, meaning should he be the only one to see them, or is he going to share these records with other people as well? So once I've logged in as Randy, again, I'm going to go to my tools menu and we'll go to the preferences area. Now this setting takes place on the startup tab. If you're using ACT for Windows, you'll go to the preferences area and it'll also be in the startup link. On the startup tab, now you just have to choose what kind of record you're going to create here. But first we have to go to the record creation options. So there's a button right here called record creation options. It'll launch a new window. Then you need to decide, which records do I want to limit access. So by default, all of these are set to public, meaning anytime Randy creates a new record, it's going to be set to public access. Anybody, any employee can view or edit those records. But let's say Randy wants to change it to private. When he clicks OK and apply, now every time Randy creates a new contact record, that record will be set to private. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to create a new contact. And we can see before I even put in any of the information, name, or any of that, if I click on the contact access tab down below, we'll see that it has already been set to private. And this just means that any records Randy creates, any contact records that Randy creates will be privately viewed by him only. Let's look at our next tip here. This one has to do with configuring company preferences. So administrators can change a preference which will enable automatic company creation whenever a certain number of contact records have identical values in the company field. Now, this can save you a lot of time that you might have spent manually creating company records for your contacts. I'm going to log in as an administrator and I'll demonstrate this to you. So I'm going to log back in as myself, since this is an admin feature. And once again, you guessed it, we're going to go to the preferences area. So once I've logged in, I'm going to go to my tools menu and choose preferences. And then on the preferences window, we're going to go to the admin tab. And in the admin tab, you'll see that there is a company preferences area. I'm going to click this company preferences button. And now we can see the company creation threshold. So what are we looking at here? By default, this is set to 0, which means no companies will ever be created automatically. However, if I change this number to 3, that means whenever 3 contact records have an identical company value in the company field, ACT will automatically create that company record for you. So let's see how this works. I'm going to click OK here. And we can see that because I already have 3 contacts with an identical company name, ACT is telling me that 1 new company will be created. So that's great. It's going to do this retroactively for me if I already have contact records where that applies. But let's also see it in action. Now I have 2 companies here called 7 Seas Brewing, and I have 1 contact up here named David Jones, who's from 7 Seas Brewing, but I haven't put the name of that company in the company field yet. So I'm going to edit David Jones's contact record. And in the company field, I'm just going to type 7 C's Brewing. And of course, spelling is crucial here because it must match. The values must be identical. Once I click save, watch what happens in this company field. It changes that from text to a link, which identifies that ACT has created this as a company record. If I go to my companies area now in ACT, we'll see in the left tree view that 7C's Brewing is now a company. And if I click on that and look at the contacts tab, we'll see that those 3 contacts have already been linked to this company. The only thing I really need to do then here is to fill out the contact or address information for this company. But this is a great tool for you to save some time if you want to create company records. If I would have changed, let me look at this one more time. If I would have changed this company preferences threshold to 1 instead of 3, then ACT will just automatically create a company for every contact that you have. And the good thing is it's not going to create duplicate companies with identical names. So if the company already exists, it won't create it a second time. But if you misspell the name of the company, then it will. So you have to be careful that your company names are correct before doing this. All right, next one, number 4. Let's talk about doing some lookups, making some field replacements, and then even creating custom menu shortcuts. So recently I imported some new contact records to help out one of my sales reps. Their name is Fran Turkleton. But in my haste, I neglected to assign Fran as the record manager for these contacts. So this is a tip where you can change a single field for multiple contact records. Let's have a look at this. First, what I want to do is perform a lookup. So I'm going to go to my contacts area, and I want to find these contacts that I've created for Fran. Now, they're all located in Minnesota. I remember that much at least. So I'm going to do a lookup by state, and I'm going to just search for a state that starts with Minnesota. Now, these are state values for me, so the 2-letter values will work. And I can see I have all of my contacts who are in Minnesota. Now, I want to refine this lookup because I only want to show the contacts where I'm the record manager. I'm not really concerned with the ones where Fran has been added as record manager, but I want to look at the ones where I'm the record manager. So I'm going to modify this lookup on Minnesota contacts. The way to do that is I'll just look up again, and this time I'm going to search for other fields because I'm looking for who is the record manager. Now this time, not last name, I want to look at record manager. So I'll scroll down to the R's, choose record manager, and starts with Brent is fine. But before I click OK, what I want to do is show more options because I want to modify this previous lookup of Minnesota. So if I expand the show more options area, now we can see that if I perform this lookup, it's going to replace the previous lookup. But what I want to do is narrow it. I want to take my previous lookup and then append that, so to speak, to show only the contacts where I'm the record manager. Okay. So I'm going to click OK. And now it shows me there are 5 contacts in Minnesota where I'm the record manager. If I went to my options menu and did customize columns, I could show the record manager field here too. Might not be a bad idea. Just to show, here's the record manager, and it shows Brent is the record manager. So I want to change this. I want all 5 of these contacts to be reassigned to Fran. Now I could go in here one by one and edit each of these, change the record manager, and save it. But there's a lot faster way. There's a faster way to do this. And the way to do this is after you perform your lookup, go to your edit menu. And what we're going to do is choose replace field. We want to replace the value of a field in all of these contacts with a different value. So ACT wants to know, well, which field are you looking to replace? And I want to replace record manager. A cool little Windows trick is just to hit R here, and it'll take you down to the first drop-down value that starts with R. So if you don't like scrolling all over the place, that's one way you can kind of bypass that. And then I'm going to change this value from Brent to Fran, because Fran should be the record manager for these 5. Now when I click OK, ACT gives me a quick warning. It's saying it's going to modify this record in the current lookup. And that's why I did the lookup first, so that when I modify it, it's going to change only these 5 records. When I click yes, we'll see it updates. And then on the right, this record manager has now been reassigned to Fran. Okay. Now, something else I want to do here. Let's say that there's a lookup that I perform fairly frequently. And so instead of having to go into the lookup menu, maybe it's an advanced query. Instead of going into my advanced query area and then writing all these rules every time, or even if it's a saved query, having to open it. What if I want to bypass all that by just taking this saved search and adding it to a menu, so that all I have to do is click that button one time and it remembers that search and performs it for me again. Okay, well, here's how we can do that. First, let's pick a query. So if I go to my lookup area, go to my advanced submenu and choose advanced query, let's open a previous query that I've saved. So there's an open button here. And the one I want to look at is all of my customers who are in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. So it's this one at the top. Maybe I perform this search frequently. When I click open, it shows me the rules that I've created. So whenever the city is equal to either Albuquerque or Santa Fe, and I'm looking for all customers within that search, that's who I want. When I click OK, I'm going to replace the current lookup just to show me that search. Yeah, that's the search I do very, very frequently. But instead of going through all those clicks to get to this point, I just want to add that search to maybe my lookup menu. Maybe add it here somewhere since I use it fairly frequently. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to customize our menu area. And so there's 2 ways to get here. You can either just right click in the menu area at the top and choose customize, or you can go to your tools menu and look for the customize submenu and then choose menus and toolbars. So it's 2 ways to get to the same place. Whichever way you choose, what'll happen is you'll open this customize menus and toolbars window. Now, what I want to do is go to my custom commands tab, because I'm creating a new command, which I'm going to add to my menu up here at the top. So let's click new. We're going to create a new command, and then I'm going to name this customers in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Kind of keep it short because it's got to fit in the menu here. So I could have shortened that to just say Albuquerque and Santa Fe, but I think this will be fine. Now in the command line, what I need to do here is locate the saved search file. And whenever you save an advanced query in ACT, it always saves it to your database. And so we just need to find that. And I'll show you where that is saved by default. So if I click Browse, it's going to go to the C drive on my computer. So where I'm going to go is Documents, and then you should have an ACT folder there. Then we're going to go to ACT Data, and then Databases. And this will show all of your database files. So every database you have will have its own individual folder here. I'm going to choose from my CloudWalker because that's the database that I'm in. And then inside here, we can see there's a directory for queries. So I'm going to double click this to go to my queries. Now you'll see there's no files in here, and that's because it's choosing to open executable files. Well, I don't want that. I want to see all files. So I'm going to change this to show different extensions. And the one I want is my customers in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. And it's a QRY, which stands for query. So that's the file type. I'm going to select that and click open. So all we're doing is we're pointing to that saved advanced query that exists in my database. So that when we run this command, it's going to bypass going through all the menus and it's just going to launch that query for me instead. Okay, and so that's all we need to do. Now, if we want to change the icon, you can change the icon here if you have an ICO file. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll click Add Command. Now, if you don't want an icon there, you should be able to remove it, but I'm going to leave it there. If I click Add Command again, it should add another one without an icon. That's kind of a little glitch that I like to use if I don't want the icon to appear. And then I would just delete that first one. So I've got a command that I'm ready to use. And so all I need to do is place this command in my lookup menu. And this is easy because all you have to do is just drag it up. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. My bad. I skipped a step. I need to go to my commands area. And inside my commands tab, there is a custom commands category. So this is where all my custom commands that I create will appear. And so here's the one I just created, customers in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Now is where I click it and drag it up. And if I drag it up to my menus, it'll show the drop downs appear here. And so I can just drop it anywhere in here that I want. And now I have my new customers in Albuquerque and Santa Fe option in this lookup. If I wanted to, I could even have dragged it to the toolbar itself and just dropped it here, and it would add a new button on the toolbar. Either way will work. Once you close this menu, yes, I want to cancel that. When I go to my lookup, actually I'm going to do a lookup on everything first. So now I'm looking at all my contacts. Now if I do a lookup on Albuquerque and Santa Fe, it'll ask me, do I want to replace the lookup? And I'll say yes. And there, now it's performed this lookup for me. So I've bypassed a whole bunch of menu steps by creating this one custom command, and this will work for me forever going forward. All right, next, this is a bulk task management tip where what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically look at a bunch of tasks or activities, and I'm going to reassign them from one user to another user. So let's say you have one of your users at your company is going on extended leave, and you need to reassign all of their upcoming activities to yourself instead. This is easy. There's a simple trick we can do this. First, you need to log in as the user who should own the task going forward. So in this case, it's me. I'm already logged in as me. So you can see my name on the lower right. That just tells you who you're logged in as. Next, we need to find the tasks from a specific user. So I'm going to go to my task list area. And from here, I'll show all the tasks based upon the filters at the top. As a matter of fact, let's locate the one user whose tasks I will be taking. His name is Eric. So I'm going to switch from viewing all users' tasks to just Eric's tasks. I'll make sure he's the only one selected in the list, and then I'll click OK. And so we see there are 6 tasks here that Eric owns, and I want to switch those to me. This is very easy to do. All we're going to do is select all the tasks. So hold down your Shift key and click the bottom task to make sure they're all selected. And then from here, all you have to do is go to your edit menu and choose cut. And it'll copy those, or it'll cut those into your clipboard. And then if you go to your edit menu again and click paste, it will paste those back in. Now, the reason we don't see it is because I'm still looking at Eric's tasks only. So if I change this to all users again, we'll see that those tasks that were assigned to Eric, those are the ones at the bottom, have now been assigned to me. So that's a really quick way to reassign multiple tasks without having to click into each one of them and then manually assign them one at a time. Next up, let's talk about custom activity types. And of course, they have corresponding history results. So by default, you probably know this by now, ACT comes with several activity types out of the box. Things like calls, meetings, to-dos, vacations, and more. But what if you need your own custom activity type that's not included, such as training or inspection or on-site visit, anything like that that's not just included with ACT? You can create as many custom activity types as you want. This is a task that can only be done by administrators and manager user roles. And then once you create your activity types, you can even assign a default result or history result along with it. So let's look at that. I'm going to go to my schedule menu. Get there, schedule menu. And then from here, we're going to look at the manage submenu, and we'll choose activity types. If you're in the cloud version of Act or the Windows version of Act, the activity types just shows up on the schedule menu itself. There's no manage submenu. So either way, you can get to the same place here. So right now we can see which activity types I've already created. We have the default ones. I've already created a custom one for training, but let's create a new custom activity type called, let's do inspection. All right, so I'll click add. I'm going to give this activity type a name. I'll call it inspection. I'm going to make sure it's set to active. This just means that people can see this activity type and use it. Now you can also create your own icons for your activity types. I think I created one ahead of time. Don't worry about doing this. If you don't want to, it's not required, but I think I have an icon for inspection. I just did a search, a Google search on ICO files, and I just found one that I liked. These files also tend to need to be kind of small. The bigger they are, the weirder it looks, because Act will have to shrink it down for you. So I thought that one looked okay. And then more importantly, though, we need to decide what the results will be. So by default, Act is going to give you the name of your activity type and then either completed or not completed. But you can change this if you want. So maybe I don't like completed. Maybe that doesn't really tell me what I want it to tell me. I'm going to call it inspection passed. And I'll set this one to be the default. So that's why I have this this box checked. And then not completed, I don't really like that one either. Let's change it to failed. And then I can even add another one if I want. We'll call it inspection postponed. And you can add as many of these as you want, different kinds of result types. Once you have the ones that you want, we'll click OK. Act will create this activity type. There it is, inspection. It's got my cool little icon there. And so now when I create a new activity, it'll be in my other area where it shows inspection. It shows my activity type is inspection. Let's just create a quick activity here. I'll schedule it with Dennis, and I'll just say site inspection. Doesn't really matter what I put here. And I'll schedule it for today at, let's just say now. By default, it's set to 5 minutes. I could change the default duration for that as well if I want to. Maybe inspections last an hour. I'll click OK. And I should see this new, clear the alarm here. I should see this new activity shows up here, site inspection. Now, when I go to clear this activity, by checking the box to the left of it, so this inspection has happened, and now I have to report on the results of it. When I clear this activity, we should see that by default, inspection passed shows up as the default result, but I could choose failed or postponed as well. So all of my settings here have been saved and applied to the database. Now, going along with custom activity types, we're going to stay in the activity area, and let's talk about activity series and creating an activity series template. This was a question that came up 1 or 2 sessions ago. Somebody wanted to know how to do this, and so we're going to show you here. So sometimes you might want to create activities that occur in chronological succession to each other as maybe a series of events or to-do items, things that might be related to a big project, an upcoming event, or even a promotion. In this case, you can create an activity series template, which you can then use again and again and again in the future. So for example, let's say that I sell machinery to my customers. And in doing so, I need to have several activities happen. Maybe there's an interview phone call at the beginning, then an on-site diagnosis visit. Maybe there's an installation where we actually install the machinery, and then an inspection that takes place afterwards. And we could go on and add additional activities either before or after the installation. These steps really should all be represented as stages on my opportunity sales process, but I also want to create an activity series template just to make sure that all of these steps get scheduled. So first, I'll check to make sure that this series template doesn't already exist. And the way to do that is by going to the schedule menu. where's my mouse? There it is. Schedule menu. And we're going to look at activity series. Now, if my series doesn't yet exist, then I'll create a template for it. And now looking at this drop-down list, I'm looking for something that might say on-site installation or something like that, but I don't see anything there. Trade show, project series. No, it doesn't yet exist. So let's create a new one. I'm going to cancel that window. And now to create a new one, I'll go to my schedule menu again. And this time we'll go back to the manage submenu and we'll choose schedule, manage a new activities series template. This opens up a wizard. And this is where I can create a new activity series. So I'll click next. Now I'm going to name it. Let's call it machinery installation. And if I wanted to, I would provide a description down here below. This is useful. If you have several users at your company, you might want to provide a description just so other people know, what is this series all about? Where does it apply? I could choose to make this either public or private, and that just means activities that are created using the series will then either be made public or private. But I want this one to be public, so I'm going to click next. And now here's where we will add our individual activities as steps within the series. And notice that when we do this, I'm not going to assign any firm dates to these activities, but instead, we're going to schedule days from a firm anchor date. So one of my activities will be called the anchor. And so in this example, I'm going to create my anchor first. And that's what everything else will be related to. So let's click add. And the type will be a to do. I'm going to set it at 0 days from the anchor date, because this will be my anchor. This will take 8 hours to do. And this is going to be called install machinery. Everything else is based off of installing this machinery. Now I'm going to make sure I schedule it for the person who's scheduling the activity series, or I could assign it to a specific coworker. If I have a coworker who always does installs, that's who I would put here. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as the person who's scheduling it. Okay, so now I'll click OK. And I have my first activity in the series, and it's my anchor because it says 0 days. Okay, now I need to schedule some activities that surround this anchor. So I'm going to click add. And let's say my first activity that I want to do is going to be a meeting type. Okay, and I want this to occur, let's say 2 weeks before the install. So I'll switch it from 2, I'll do weeks, and I want it to be before the anchor date. And this meeting is going to take 3 hours. So I'll schedule that. And I'm going to call this the on-site diagnosis visit. Okay. Again, I could change my priorities and set ring alarms if I want, but I'm not going to do that right now. So again, I'll click OK. And now we can see I have an activity that takes place 2 weeks before the anchor. Okay, let's add one more just to make sure we get the point across. Let's do one that takes place 2 days after the anchor date. So 2 days after the installation, we're going to do an inspection. And so I think this is going to take, let's say 2 hours to inspect, and we'll just call it machinery installation inspection. Okay. Now we'd probably want to add more activities. I'm going to click OK. These don't show up chronologically in this list, unfortunately. Oops, I didn't mean to click on that. But you'll just have to figure out if there's a negative, that means it's going to occur before the anchor date. If it's positive, that occurs after the anchor date. And we could add more if we wanted to, maybe a phone call to sort of gauge the customer's interest, or maybe a survey that takes place a month or 2 afterwards. We could add a whole bunch of different activities just to make sure we're doing everything we can to have a happy customer. But I'm going to go to the next step. And then the next step, it says, hey, you've created this new template. Would you like to schedule this series now? And I'm going to say no. I'm going to schedule this later. And I'll click finish. So now we have a new activity series template that we can use at any time to schedule several activities that have relation to each other. Let's show you how that works. From my schedule menu, I'm going to choose activity series again. And now my drop-down box should have my machinery installation template that I just created. So I'll click on that. And now it shows me the 3 activities that are going to get scheduled. I have to make sure that I have a contact in this schedule activities with dropdown. So who is this going to be for? Let's say this is going to go with James Williams. And all I need to do now is choose the anchor date. So when should this installation take place? Let's say that they're hoping to have this install happen, I don't know, on the 14th of December. And so now all the other dates will be created based upon this anchor date. So all I'm going to do is, if I need to associate this with a company, also I could do that, but I'm just going to click schedule button. And ACT will create these activities for me. Here it is, install machinery on the 14th. I have an activity before that, on-site diagnosis visit, which is today. That's 2 weeks before. And then 2 weeks after, on the 16th, I have my inspection activity. So all of these things have been assigned on my calendar. And now I can look at either my calendar or my task list to see that they've been placed in the proper order. And then from now on, whenever I have a machine installation, I can assign it with an activity series instead of having to go through each activity one by one. All right, next up, let's look at the universal search. So ACT comes with several powerful ways to perform searches and lookups just to get exactly what you want from your database. This universal search is kind of a catch-all search. It can locate things that really don't fit into a neat bucket from the other lookups that are available. It's called the universal search for that very reason. And it's conveniently located at the top of your screen. So if you're in ACT, you'll see a search window at the top. In the cloud version, I believe the search window is sort of centered or maybe a little bit more to the left. It's on every page that you go to. If you're in your contacts area, it'll be there too. And that's your universal search. So the universal search will look everywhere in your database. It's going to look through your contact records, group records, companies, opportunities. It'll look inside your activities. It will look inside your emails that you've sent and received if you are integrated with Outlook or Gmail. It's going to look into your marketing automation campaigns. It even looks inside any attached documents that you have saved to the database. So let's do a quick search. The one I usually use to show this is golf. Just type the word golf and hit enter. This is going to look through my entire database for any time the word golf is used. And so we can see I have some results. There are activities that are associated with golf. There's attachments, there's history records, there's notes, and so on and so on. Now on the right, if I would have had hundreds and hundreds of results, I can filter some of these results. And this says to show only. Maybe I only want to see attachments. I'm looking for an attachment that has the word golf in it. So if I check the attachments box, it's going to filter everything but attachments. And here we can see that the word golf occurs in 2 emails, which have been attached, and 1 Word document. If I click this link for the Word document, ACT is going to open up Microsoft Word for me, and it's going to show me this attachment called 18 holes, and it just has the word golf 3 times so that I can show you that ACT looks inside the Word document to find that string that you're searching for. So that's very useful. If you say, I know I have this document somewhere and it talks about a certain thing, you can use the universal search to locate that document. Now, it's not searching your entire computer. It's looking for anything that's a part of your database. So if you've saved that attachment somewhere in your database on a documents tab or something like that, then ACT will be able to find it. So that's the universal search, super handy. If you can't find something, try the universal search and hopefully that will give you the results you want. All right, I think this is the last one I'm going to show you today. This is useful if you need to edit multiple contacts. You can do it by editing a spreadsheet and then importing that spreadsheet back into ACT. So earlier I talked about how you can edit a single field for multiple contacts by using the edit replace menu function. Let's go back to my contacts area and I'll refresh your memory. When I had to replace the record manager for my Minnesota contacts from me to Fran, I used this edit replace field. The thing about that is it only replaces one field's worth of values across a lookup. What if I had lots of contacts that needed a lot of editing on different fields? Let's say that I do a lookup on everybody, see if I have anything that applies to this. If I do a lookup on all my contacts, sometimes if I click the state header, it'll sort by state and it'll show me any contacts that don't have state information or other address information. So this is a problem for me because I want my data to be pristine. I want my data to be reliable. And so this is not good enough. What I need to do is add contact information for these contacts at the top of the screen. And I can do this. I can fix all of these at once rather than going through each individual record and keying in the information and then saving them. What I'm going to do is export this list. But first, I want to make sure I have all the columns visible that I want. So maybe I want to add my address to file here because sometimes there's information in there that I need. So I'm going to go to my customized columns area, locate address to, and add that to my layout. I'll even move it up in the view so that it occurs directly beneath address 1. There we go. Now when I click OK, my address to column appears here, and I'm going to do an export of just the contacts who don't have that contact information that I want. So I'm going to select all of these and perform a lookup on these. So after you select them, you can click lookup selected, and it'll only show the ones that you've selected. Now, this is important because when I do an export, it's going to export everything that's on the screen. If I would have exported that previous view, it would have exported hundreds and hundreds of contacts that I'm not interested in editing. So do your lookup first, and then click the export button, which is directly above it. Export the current list to Excel, and it will export this into an Excel spreadsheet. All right, so let's click that and look at this. So here it is. My data matches perfectly between ACT and Excel. So now what I can do is either edit this spreadsheet myself or assign it to someone else at my company. Maybe I have an intern who needs something to do. Here, look up these 11 people and find out their contact information and send it back to me at the end of the week. And then I can import it back into ACT. So let's say that that has happened, some time has passed, and I have edited that spreadsheet, and now it looks like this. I've saved it as a CSV file, comma separated value. You could save it as Excel, I think, if you want, but I find that CSV is good enough for me. So I have all my data is saved, their names are here, all their addresses are here, website information, everything is good, everything that I want. So now what I'm going to do is import this spreadsheet back into ACT, but I'm going to do it in such a way where it doesn't create duplicate records, but instead it's going to just append the current data that's already there. So let's close this, and I'll make a note of this first contact, Rob Boss. So currently Rob Boss doesn't have any address information. We're going to do that with this import. And also we'll be able to clean up some of these fields, like this phone number field. I don't like the way it's formatted. I like them to be all consistent with each other. So we can do both of these things at one time by editing it in a spreadsheet. So let's import that spreadsheet that I've edited. We'll go to the File menu, and we'll choose Import. And this will launch a wizard, an import wizard. So I'll click Next. And the type of data I want to import is not an ACT database. I'm importing a spreadsheet. It's not an Excel spreadsheet because I saved it as a CSV file, comma separated. So I'm going to choose this text separated by commas. Now I'm going to browse for the file. So I'll click the Browse button, and I'll locate it. I believe it's this one that I just saved. Yeah, that's today's date. Contacts missing info. So I'll click open. And now I'll click next. Now I have to specify what types of records I'm importing. These are contact records. So I'm going to leave contact selected and choose next. And now this is important. Are we doing a typical import or a custom import? I'm going to do custom import here because I just want to make sure that everything is correct. And before I click next, though, another important thing to do is click this duplicate checking button. Here is where we decide how to decide if some of these contacts are already in the database or not. And I want to make sure that ACT sees all of these as duplicates. So I'm going to match on contact name. And since they all have email addresses in here, I can also match on email, which is probably a good idea in this case. So I'm going to leave contact first and then email, and I'm going to enable duplicate checking in the database. So I'll click OK to that. And now I can click next. Now it's asking me, do I want to import the first record? This is because in my spreadsheet, the first line, the first row is a header row, and I don't want to import that. Otherwise, I'll have a contact who's named first name, last name, city, state, and so on. So I'm going to make sure I don't check that. Do not import the first record. And I'll click next. Now, here's where the custom area lets us decide whether our fields are mapping correctly from here, from the import to ACT. So by default, the first screen just shows you which fields ACT is going to map from the spreadsheet to the ACT field. And so you can scroll down here just to make sure that everything is looking great. You can see how on the spreadsheet, the column name was website with one word, but ACT was smart enough to say, oh, you mean website. So that's good. It mapped that for me automatically. I can even scroll through each of these buttons to show each individual contact record from the spreadsheet on how it's going to map into ACT. And so once you're happy with all that, you can click next. And now we need to specify our merge option. So don't skip by this screen. This is where you say if ACT has found a match in the database from the spreadsheet, what should ACT do with that? So I'm going to click contact, and you can say replace with source contact, or I like to choose, you can choose merge, but in this case, we're going to replace it. So I'm going to replace everything on the ACT database with the items from my spreadsheet. And this is crucial because now this will fix my phone formatting that I corrected in the spreadsheet. So it's going to replace that phone number format with the new phone number format. So now I'm going to click OK here. And I'll click next one more time. And we get our confirmation screen. All fields are compatible. So let's click import. And now it's going to import each of these contacts one at a time. So now if I click finish here, if I look up all my contacts again, and if I sort by state, like I did before, scroll to the top, oops, sort backwards by state, we'll see that there are no contacts who are missing state information. And just to double check that, let's do a quick search on one of the contacts. His name was, let's see, Rob, I believe it was, oops, I didn't mean to do that. No, don't save this query. Look up contact Rob. There he is, Rob Boss. Before, he didn't have any contact information, but now because of that import, this contact information has come through, and his phone number is now fixed in such a way to a format that I like. And we didn't create any duplicate records. There's only one Rob Boss, so everything has worked perfectly. Okay, so that's the end of all of these little quick tips and tricks. I hope you found them useful. You've been asking questions inside the Q&A panel. That's great. So if there are no other questions, I will just close this session for this month and say thank you. please, when you get the survey in your email or however the survey is sent to you, please fill that out for us. Let us know how we're doing. And also, if you have any ideas for future webinars, we're happy to hear those too. We want to know what you want to know. So we can add that to any future sessions. Now, we're not going to be doing one in December. We're going to take some time off for the holidays, but we'll be back at the beginning of the new year, at the end of January, with our next webinar. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're going to hang out for about 10 more minutes and answer any questions that are still have not been addressed. But thanks for joining us. Have a great holiday season, and we'll see you in the new year.